Welcome. My
Thank
name
you.
is Simon Bailey from the Business of Indie Games Virtual Summit, and I'm here with Linda Zetterman, the CEO and founder of Warpzone Studios in Sweden. We're seriously impressed here with Warpzone, a studio of 5 highly experienced and committed developers with a long history in successful video games. They're currently developing and funding their own original base builder game. Linda, welcome.
Thank you.
Let's dive straight in. Linda, tell us, what inspired you to set up on your own, and what is your new game?
The game isn't announced yet, but I can tell you it's a simplified dwarf fortress with pretty graphics. And as for starting our studio, we, us 3 founders, we met at Avalanche 2006, and then we went our separate ways and worked at a couple of different studios. And we felt we have a lot of experience and we have a lot of ideas on how to have a really excellent office culture, as well as making awesome games.
Well, sounds exciting. Where are you within your strategy for releasing that game now? What's your plan going forward?
We are in alpha with the game, and we're talking with a couple of different publishers, but if we can't get a deal we like, we're just going to go ahead and release it ourselves. We can do that, but it would be nice with someone to hold hands with. Yes.
Tell me, what do you see are the benefits from working with a publisher rather than working on your own?
Ideally, I would get to just launch the game ourselves and do everything, and then have a do-over and do it with a publisher and just compare the outcomes and then decide. I can't really do that though, so we're kind of making it up as we go along, because I released a lot of games, but not in this setting and not with doing this much myself. So I don't really know what it is I don't know. So we're just gonna try our best.
Sure, and I imagine that some of that is influenced from your experience at Paradox. They've made quite a name for themselves in publishing on PC particularly. What did you learn from your experience there, and what have you taken with you? It's like having the inside track, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I did work at the studio, but when I started at Paradox, we were like 20 people. So I have a lot of insights on how the publishing department worked. And of course, we also worked closely with them at the studio. And without that experience, I feel this would have been a lot harder.
Yeah, absolutely. What did you learn there that's going to help you for your own release?
Well, I was publisher responsible for a couple of projects at Paradox, and being in that role, I did work very close with marketing and publishing and, setting up marketing plans and all that I had no idea on how to do. I am a civil engineer from start, so that's not really my forte. Sure.
So
sorry, not civil engineer, it's Master of Science.
Software engineer.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Thank you. So does that mean you got to see, exactly how a game was marketed from start to finish?
Yeah, for sure.
Great. And can you give any of our sort of young or even old, like me, independent developers who are, just coming up or trying to launch their own titles? Well, what secrets did you get from there? What insights did you get?
Well, something I think Paradox does extraordinarily well, or maybe don't have to do that right now because they have grown and they're quite big. But when they started out, they did a lot of great things with very small means. For example, instead of paying for ads in big, huge magazines, they would find the smaller and more targeted stuff to aim their focus at. So, for example, if we're translating that to today, maybe not ask PewDiePie to do a video on your game, but see who has done similar games and has a kind of largest following, who is going up, who is going to be the next big thing in this genre, and approach them instead.
Well, yeah, that's a really good insight. Is there anything else like that? Outside of influencers, maybe?
Well, the thing is that influencers are so important today. If we're looking at some indies have released graphs, and you can see it's a sales graph, right? And you can see the spikes, and then they label the spikes. So this is where we got an expose in PC Gamer. This is where we got you the front page of Reddit, etc. And the front page of Reddit always wins, like magnitudes bigger, and it's just that kind of social media is super big.
Thank you. Yeah, that's really interesting. So Reddit, influencers, are there other sites? I mean, in your genre, will you connect directly on Facebook with the individuals that you want to champion your game?
Facebook is still important, sure, but I think it's like 4th on our priority list. So we have Discord, where we're going to have our community hosted, and then Reddit and Imgur is really nice for this kind of game as well. And then we have Facebook and Twitter. There are stuff to do on Instagram, for example, as well, but I don't think it's as big for this type of title. So right. It's important to do your research and check in the competition and see what they have been doing. Where do their traffic comes from?
Yes. We know that you put a lot of work into the market research before you started the development. Now that Steam Spy data is no longer available, what have you been able to do to test your concept?
Well, Steam Spy is still around. It's just not as useful anymore. The numbers aren't as accurate anymore. But we do a lot of playtesting. So we see similar games, you kind of know how they're doing, and then we do playtesting to test our specific game. But when I've been curious, I've also emailed other developers and asked them, not exactly sales numbers, but I've asked them, so how was it? Was it worth it to release on the Switch? And I mean, even if it's just a total cold call, I've gotten replies. People are really kind.
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, the games business, I've always found it like that.
Yeah.
Will you be releasing on Switch?
That's not the first goal. That's kind of the go big plan. That's also something I learned at Paradox. It's important to have a go big plan. If the game releases and does really well, it's important to be able to take care of that and do something with it. Yeah,
great. Thank you. That is important. You talked about testing against your competitors. Nicola said that you also are able to test where the competitors' traffic comes from and other cool things like that. How do you do that? What have you learned?
I read an article on Gamasutra about a research method called the lookalike target method. And there are a couple of sites they use, like Google Analytics and a couple of more. And you can enter competitors' website there and check where their traffic comes from. And that's been really helpful. I can post a link.
Right, yeah, that would be great. That'd be really interesting. Thank you. I mean, there are so many risks for anyone wanting to create a game these days. What strategies do you have to reduce risk with this title?
Well, there are several types of risks. There is the risk of running out of money, and we've been doing a little bit of consultant work for other studios, and we are talking with investors and publishers and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And for the risk of not making the game good enough, we're doing playtesting. I think that is super important and crucial to do several kinds of playtesting too. So partly people that's never seen the game before and just see if they can figure it out and enjoy it, of course. But then also a solid group of beta testers. That's tremendously helpful. Was there any other kind of risk you thought of?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's development risk, but you've got a lot of experience in that. Running out of funding is, obviously the right one. And then maybe doing the wrong deal with a publisher is also, a risk. And then there, of course, is the risk that if you make a great game, that it doesn't reach enough people. So you said you were going to be using Reddit and Discord, and was it
Imgur or Imager?
Yeah. Imager, yeah, as your main channels. What have you learned about marketing through those channels? And how will you mitigate risks there?
So far, since the game is not announced, we haven't really started with Reddit and Imager yet. But I imagine we'll just post stuff there. I mean, funny gifs from the game and see what people like. That's also going to be helpful in development. If 1,000 people like this GIF and 2 people like this one, then we know to make more of the first kind of stuff. But so far, I don't have any numbers to support that. Discord is not going to be primarily for promoting the game. That's going to be community building.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And will you put it on Steam in early access, or will you reduce risk by releasing it episodically or anything like that?
Maybe early access. We are talking about that. We're not going to do episodically. Mm-hmm. I think the upside of early access is that it is a promise. It means we're going to keep building on this game. And that's what we plan to do anyway. So I think that could be a good thing. I'm not sure. Some people say early access is dead, don't do it. Mm-hmm. But I don't actually have numbers that say that. So I'm not sure.
You have numbers that say that, or you have numbers?
No, I don't have.
No, yeah, sure. I mean, it's always worthwhile looking into the actual numbers to see that, because I've spoken to a lot of people, through this virtual summit, and some people have said Kickstarter is dead, yet people are getting well funded on Kickstarter.
I think if we would do a Kickstarter, we wouldn't use it as a funding method. I think we would use it as PR mostly.
Yeah, I see.
That's a fairly low target, and then try to just reach people via their network.
Yes. Where will you start to build your core community, first of all, do you think? From your beta testing community?
Yeah, I think so. We're going to reach out to people we feel would really enjoy this type of game and start to build from there.
And you'll start there on Discord, you said, yeah?
Yeah, but we'll reach out to people on various platforms and try to pull them into our Discord.
Yes, great. Okay. So you're at alpha at the moment. Is your definition, similar to the EA definition, content complete and playable from start?
No, content complete is beta for me, and alpha is feature complete. So we are we're not at feature complete yet. We're closing in on it. So therefore, I say we're in alpha. We're not done with alpha.
Okay, yeah, I see. And is it playable yet from start to finish?
Well, it's hard to say. It's kind of sandboxy. So you can start a map and you can start to build a base, but we don't have any enemies in the game right now, or nothing that really hinders your base building. So that's one of the few things we're going to add next.
So you know what I'm going to ask you now, don't you?
No.
Do you have a release date?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, sure. Next year.
Next year. Thank you. Well, that's a specific year anyway, so it's great.
Yes.
You know, so it's fascinating. You know, you've got experienced developers that you're working with. You're experienced yourself. You've got great experience in being, you know, working at Paradox and learning how to do a lot with little. What advice or experience or lessons if you could give us like 3 lessons learned for indies that are starting out or hoping to release their own game, what advice could you give them?
I've been a judge in a few competitions, and for new people starting out and making their first commercial game, I feel a lot of people are missing to check the genre viability. So, for example, couch co-op, it's a really popular genre to make for your first game, but it's also a really hard sell. And I feel a lot of new people don't really know this, or they don't know to look into this. And I think one of the best things you can do is check out a talk by Ryan Clark from Crypt of the Necrodancer. He did a talk called How to Consistently Make Profitable Indie Games, and it's really good. It's just packed with gold, basically.
Yes, I've seen that actually.
Yeah, it's very good. That's my primary tips. Check out that talk.
Thank you. And any other tips that you've learned along the way?
Well, the hardest part about game development is scope management. So, and that goes for new and older devs alike.
Sure.
If you can do something to mitigate that risk, then do it. For me, I prefer to make a playable game and then add one thing at a time, but still keeping it playable, because then you can release at any point when the money runs out or you have to release for another reason.
Yeah, that's a great strategy, actually. You know, in my early days, I made many a huge 3D walkthrough with not enough gameplay. So I like that idea where you've got the playable game and then you can add the features one at a time.
I mean, not all games can be developed that way, but if you can, I recommend it.
Well, and is there anything that you would do differently? You're about 12 years in the business, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there anything you would have done differently?
No.
Great.
I've had a really nice career so far.
Yeah, fantastic. And are you playing anything at the moment?
No Man's Sky. I just started recently because I waited. It was a bit buggy at release, I heard. So I waited because I knew I was going to love it. And I'm so in love. Yeah. Fantastic.
And do you have, I meant to pick up earlier on when you talked about testing. Are there robust ways to test an idea as an indie dev? Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, play testing is my answer to like half of your questions, I feel.
Yeah, okay.
I really like play testing. One of my favorites is to have someone sit at the computer and then have them perform a task and ask them to talk aloud what they're thinking at the same time. You might get stuff like, okay, I'm supposed to dig, but where's the button? And how do I do this? And it can be really useful.
Yeah, no, that's vital. Thank you. And what size groups do you use for that?
Well, last time we had a group of about 30, but they tested 2 at the time, but that was a bit much.
Okay.
So I think it's better to do it in smaller chunks.
Yes.
And 1 person at the time.
And are there any red flags in that process when you're testing the games?
Yes. One hard part is that they often want to please you. They want to be nice to you because you're the developer. So if you can have someone else hold the tests, that is ideal.
Yeah, great. Yeah, someone disconnected who they can be honest with.
Exactly. And they can even be like, oh, developers, they're not thinking about this stuff, and, complain a bit, and then maybe get the other one to do that too. And then you get really good information.
Yeah, fabulous. Thank you. That's so useful. So I think we can wrap up for today, but is there anything you'd like our community to know about your game? This is your opportunity to share about your game if you'd like to plug it, give it some.
Sure. I feel when you talk to people about, especially Dwarf Fortress, but also a few other games in that genre, they say, yeah, I read about that. I read about other people playing it, but I haven't played it myself. It seems complicated. And for our game, we aim to do that and have those people who like to read about other people playing be able to play this game. And also because it's not pixel graphics, so I think it can appeal to a wider audience.
Yeah, fabulous. Well, I'll keep an eye out for it. Please let us know as soon as you can release the name, and we will put it out to our community too.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time.